I'll just get JP out ready.
Hello and welcome to the first ever live NFL Corner on the channel. It's something new, it's something we've not done yet, and it's something hopefully we can make good in the future. Joining me today, as always, is my guest, Will. Hello, Will.
Hello, how are you doing?
I'm not too bad, and I'm hopeful that everyone is joining us as well. Let's get right into it. Oh no, I've missed the button. There we go. Anyway, that is up and running, and it sounds just good. If there are any problems, do let me know in the chat. There shouldn't be. But knowing me, there's probably going to be something because this
Much bound to happen.
Because we was meant to do this earlier, and that all went out the window. But it's a good start. So what we're going to be doing today on the NFL Corner, as usual, is we will go through the news and the rumours amongst the franchise of the NFL. We'll see what's going on in and around the clubs. However, what we will not do is bring rumours. We don't bring rumours. We bring breaking news.
Breaking news only.
Yeah, but then also after that we will be doing an NFL mock draft, and that is our first of the season. We will probably do more as people's positions in the draft change. This one is good now because it's straight after the combine.
It's kind of like an instant combine draft, mock draft. See what players have risen up people's boards, have played. Because when the first mock drafts were made a few months ago, players are going to be a lot different to what they are now. So we're seeing what stars performed at the combine and how they pushed up their grade to get into higher mock
definitely.
Draft.
And I mean, we'll just quickly start before we get into the draft. What people for you have really stood out from the NFL combine? For me, he will be brought up later, but Mekhi Becton.
Wow.
Yeah, we'll talk about his stats later. We won't talk about him just yet, but who for you stood out?
A lot of people really stood out. Maybe one of them is CJ Henderson. I know early in the process he was kind of looked at maybe as a second round corner, but he's come in. I think he ran a 4.39. That's very good for a cornerback. He's one of the best man-to-man corners in the draft, and I think he's going to be taken in the top 20. If I'm being honest with you, whether it's the Cowboys, the Jaguars, someone's going to need a corner. I think CJ Henderson. It's between him and Christian Fulton as the second best corner in the draft.
Yeah,
because you've got Jeff Okudah, who's far and out the best.
He's
corner
the best
in the draft.
corner in the draft.
But then it's Christian Fulton and CJ. It's going to be interesting to see where teams value those two in the coming weeks.
Interesting news from the combine. Henry Ruggs didn't break the record.
Good.
I'm absolutely good because it's always like we want to see.
Want to see it, don't we?
We do want to see someone break the record, but I also want to mention Jalen Hurts. So I think had a really good combine. I think he's probably increased his stock a little bit.
He's been overlooked all his career, so doubting people wrong is never. It's something he's done all his career. So.
But no, first we will start the episode before we go into our draft. It's the news section. It's either your favourite section or your least favourite because it comes every week. But we have got to be consistent. The first piece of news I am going to go with is that the 49ers are exercising their team option on their star, Kyle Juszczyk, who impressed me massively in the Super Bowl. For a man who was watching his first ever Super Bowl, impressed me throughout the whole season, and I think it's more than fair enough.
Yeah, well, we all know he's a fullback, but he brings a lot more than the regular fullback, as to say. I mean, he can catch a pass, he can run, he can block. We saw in the Super Bowl against the Chiefs, he's probably the MVP in the first half for the 49ers.
Yes, definitely.
Had a very good game. So yeah, it's a good move by the 49ers to bring him back.
Before Pat Mahomes went on an absolute madness, he would have been
Super Bowl MVP.
Yeah, he would have been, but sadly that's not how it goes. Another bit of breaking news from almost a day ago now. Jimmy Graham, the tight end from the Green Bay Packers, is expected not to be in Green Bay next year. He's 33, and he recorded 447 yards and 3 touchdowns in 2019. He's currently still the highest paid tight end, but they're looking to trade or release him in the off-season. I think that's fair enough considering his age.
It's understandable.
Yeah. I think I don't understand how he's the highest paid tight end in the league. I know he's a very talented player, but I think there's a lot better tight ends out there.
I think he was signed a few years ago now, before there was other tight ends on the market. But yeah, it makes a lot of sense to move on from Jimmy Graham now. He's 33. Injuries are taking a toll on him. He's always going to be that red zone threat just because of how tall he is. But you need to start looking for younger players now at the tight end position, because Jimmy Graham, I think he's run his course as a top tight end in the league.
Oh, I definitely say so. I definitely agree. Some more news. The Chargers are going to receive 5 times Pro Bowl G-Trey Turner from the Panthers in exchange for Russell Okung. This is per the rap sheet in an offensive lineman swap. That's another bit of news. Also, former Browns defensive lineman Chris Smith is signing a 1-year deal with the Panthers. Per Adam Schefter, I think he sat out the year.
Did, after the tragic accident where his wife was killed. I think she got hit by a car. So he took the year out just to dwell on it, which I completely understand because it's an awful thing to happen. But good for him. He's back in the league. He's got his 1-year deal. Let's hopefully can show him what he can do.
Definitely. And final bit of breaking news. I'm going to break my own rule. I'm going to talk about 2 rumours in a minute.
Oh.
But I know I'm breaking my own rule. But the Eagles are expected to let the 9-time Pro Bowl left tackle Jason Peters hit the free agent market per Mike Garafolo. Now, I'm going to go on to 2 bits of rumours. I apologise, Will. I know we're not a reporting rumours channel, but the Browns are considering trading Odell Beckham Jr. if they get the offer right. The reason I'm bringing these 2 rumours up is because they involve stars that are much bigger than your average player. They are players that have made a name for themselves. They're headline players, I'd say.
Yeah.
And last year, OBJ was, because he got traded. Was it last year he got traded to the Browns?
Got traded to the Browns from the Giants, yeah.
Yeah, that was last year. And now he may be being traded away for the right offer. I couldn't believe this when I read it, considering he's only had a year.
Yeah, I can't see it happening.
I can't, personally.
Obviously, there was rumours he was unsettled last season. He didn't really want to be traded to the Browns, but I think with a new head coach in Kevin Stefanski, bringing a new scheme over, hopefully Odell can adapt to that better because, let's not lie, this first season with the Browns has been a pretty tragic one for Odell because he's not been as effective as he once was with the Giants. Obviously, that can stem from Baker Mayfield having a terrible year, and Freddie Kitchens. He was always on the hot seat. It seemed from the start of the season. The Browns never seemed to have confidence in him, despite hiring him as head coach when he was the OC. I think he will stay with the Browns this season. See how it goes. Run it back another year, but I mean the reports are there. So if they've come from somewhere, so it's not a good sign. They could be traded away.
Do you think it comes down to see how he fits into Kevin Stefanski's system?
I think it does. I think, like I said, I think you need to give him a chance to see if he can do better in Kevin Stefanski's system. Give him another try because he's going to bring new ideas at the end of the day. He's going to bring new players, and he might make Odell the focal point of the offense when last season he might not have been. But when you've got a player with a talent like Odell Beckham, in his first 2 seasons, this man had more receiving yards than anyone in NFL history, even more than Jerry Rice, I think, or maybe just behind Jerry Rice.
Yeah.
But still, he's an exceptional talent. People can say he's got a bit of a big ego off the field. He can be, a bit questionable, but
he's definitely got a personality.
Oh yeah, 100%.
I think that's fair enough to say. I
could say he's a diva receiver as well, but
I mean, do you know, it's fair enough to say, and it's not a knock on him because I mean, as a person, he's fantastic. Just move your phone slightly away. We're having a bit of an electric buzz in the ear, which is not our fault. Sorry for any sound issues. But also, another bit of rumours that I did have to mention, San Francisco 49ers possibly looking to get rid of Jimmy G and bring in Tom Brady. And apparently this has more legs than people originally thought. This is getting a stronger rumour as the days go by. Another one, which when I read it, couldn't believe it.
Well, we all laughed at Skip Bayless, didn't we, when he mentioned it, when he said get Brady into San Francisco. But Brady's a 49ers fan. At this point in his career, he's looking to join a team. He's not looking down the road. He's looking to join a team. It could be his last team. I mean, when I go to your boyhood favourite team, Jimmy G didn't look the best in the Super Bowl. Is he a top 10 quarterback? I don't think so. And Tom Brady's proven he can win Super Bowls. I know he had a year of regression last season with the Patriots. I don't think he goes back to the Patriots, but I didn't expect the 49ers to be in for him. I think it would be more like the Chargers or the Raiders. But we'll have to see what happens with this. It's a fascinating story because Tom Brady's probably the greatest player in NFL history based on his winnings and the position he plays. But yeah, we'll have to see what happens.
I think with Jimmy G, a lot of San Francisco's play last year was running the ball.
Definitely.
Which I think if they bring in Tom Brady, will he want to do that? I guess it saves him.
It'll make his job easier.
Saves him getting hit. He's getting older.
Yeah.
So it might match it, but then again, Brady is known for his arm and his throwing capabilities. It's kind of a double-edged sword, really. Do you look at it from a glass half full, glass half empty? Do you look at it as if it's going to improve his game because he doesn't have to get hit as many times, which means he can play with more confidence and he just has to hand the ball off?
Yeah, I mean, when he played for the Patriots, they had a lot of running backs. I mean, they had Rex Burkhead, James White. They've had Sony Michel. So they do like to run the ball, the Patriots. They've tried to establish a bit of a run game the last few years. But when you look at the 49ers running backs, they've also got a good tandem of running backs. Got Mostert, Tevin Coleman,
definitely.
The young kid, what's he called? I forgot. Matt Breida, that's it, Matt Breida.
Matt Breida, yeah.
So they do have a lot of running backs. And look, at this point in his career, like you say, Brady, he's going to want to avoid the big hits. Run the ball's going to make it a lot easier for him instead of putting the game on his shoulders like the Patriots did many times in his career.
I just don't think he can anymore. I know I don't want to say that about arguably one of the best players to ever play in the league, but I just don't think he can do that now from what I saw last season. And sadly for him, that was my first ever season seeing Tom Brady. So he hasn't made the best thing, but you can't deny the history that he's got and how well he has played in the past.
Yeah.
So I think it's fair enough to say it makes sense on one hand, but also I think it would be a bit harsh on Jimmy G.
It would. Because if you're Jimmy G, you're thinking they don't believe in me, aren't you, really?
Yeah.
If they sign someone like Tom Brady. And do you want to do that to your franchise quarterback who's still got a lot, like I think he's got 2 or 3 years left on his contract, which is a pretty big contract, so you can't just get rid of Jimmy G. But we'll have to see. I don't think he's going to end up with the 49ers. I think he'll go either the Chargers or the Raiders. I think those are the biggest suitors for him, because I know there were rumours that the Raiders might, as soon as free agency opens, offer him a 2-year, $60 million deal.
Yeah.
Which he might accept, because Brady's never been the highest paid quarterback in the league. He's always took a pay cut, which is a reason why he's won so many Super Bowls.
Yeah, and it's a testament to the man himself as well. Speaking of brilliant quarterbacks or QBs, whichever you prefer, Kieran James Dillon has said big up Jameis, and he clearly knows that Jameis should have been the highest paid QB and should have been a Super Bowl MVP.
Well, it's your contract, he might be the highest paid after this off-season.
He's definitely not going to be. But, as we said, interesting about him, we don't know where he's going to end up. But what we do know, or what we're going to try and predict, is where these players will end up. It is the NFL Corner mock draft. I should have put
1.0.
part 1, because there probably will be more before the season comes back, because it's still a long time. And things change.
Injuries happen.
I was about to say, we're just doing the first round this week, and you look at Laviska Shenault, could have been a first rounder, gets a core muscle injury, has to have surgery, out for 6 weeks, did you say?
4 or 6 weeks. Teams are going to be looking at that thinking, we don't want to take the risk.
Exactly, and that has completely, unfortunately for him,
could be a second round pick now.
Lowered his stock because of the combine and because of injuries. So in the off-season, you never know what's going to happen.
Never.
And free agency as well, teams might plug the gap they needed to plug, so they don't need for example, if we'll take the first pick, which will be Joe Burrow, I very much doubt it, but the Bengals go and get Brady. But you know what I mean? That stuff like that can happen and can change the way the draft will go, which I'm very excited for. When does the draft happen again, just for anyone who doesn't know?
It starts on April 23rd, the Thursday, and it ends on the Saturday. So it's rounds 1 on the Thursday night, 2 and 3 on the Friday night, and then 4, 5, 6, and 7 on the Saturday night.
I'm very, very
can't wait.
Excited.
Love the draft.
I was going to say, we love it so much that we decided to do one. The first pick in the overall 2020 draft is the Cincinnati Bengals. Finished the season 2-14, which means they were bestowed the honour of the first draft pick after a horrendous season. Politely horrendous season. Yeah. They, however, have lucked out because the man who had his greatest season, arguably the greatest college season of anyone ever, is the guy they're going to pick. This is Will's mock draft. So, Will, who are the Cincinnati Bengals picking at number 1?
Joe Burrow.
Surprise to everyone. Surprise. Yeah, I was going to say, I'm counting the amount of surprise people. None. There we go. I mean, you look at the Bengals last year, absolutely awful.
Terrible.
Politely.
Terrible.
And I know the college game is different to the NFL game. The step up is massive. But you look at Joe Burrow, 60 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, 5,671 yards, and a 78.6 completion percentage.
That's incredible. It's just unbelievable.
I mean, no one posts these numbers. There's talent there, But
it's Madden numbers, isn't it?
It's Madden numbers.
It is.
But you have got to question, is it a one-season thing? Because in 2018, he was not as good as he is now, and he was not producing the production. No. However, you've also got to look at who they're replacing in Andy Dalton, who led them to a 2-14 season. I don't arguably think it was only his fault, but
the roster's not great.
No,
but I know what you mean. The quarterback is the leader of the team.
Yeah,
and terrible season.
A lot of people say your team's only as good as your quarterback. And
the Bengals personify that statement, don't they?
Andy Dalton, 16 touchdowns on the season, 14 interceptions. He almost did the Jameis 50-50. 14 interceptions, 3,494 yards, and only 58.1% completion percentage. I think it is a position they need to upgrade in massively.
Definitely. And like you said, quarterbacks usually dictate the record. If you've got a quarterback that is consistently good, you're probably going to be playing in January. If you don't, you're going to be struggling no matter how good your defense or your weapons are, your wide receivers or your running backs. And we've known for a long time that this guy's going to be the number 1 overall pick. Like you say, 1 year wonder maybe, but he's shown he can be a leader. I just like what I like about Joe Burrow is he's been doubted all his career and he's come back from it. And he just seems like a guy that, look, he's going to take on any challenge. And where the Bengals are at the moment, 2-14, he's going to take a rotten franchise that hasn't won a playoff game in God knows how long, and hopefully lead them to the promised land, which I hope for him. I hope he can do that.
I hope so too. And there were rumours that he didn't want to play for the Bengals. Since then, they have been pretty much quashed by the man himself.
Yeah.
But he did. There were rumours that he did say, I will stay and I will play for the Bengals if they can keep AJ Green. If they keep AJ Green, I'll have a year with him, and then I'll play.
And the Bengals, they're rumoured to franchise tag AJ Green. So if they're franchise tagging him after the meeting with Burrow, it just kind of shows you that this is pretty much a done deal.
Yeah, they work together, and that is what. When you look at the first 5 picks, most of them are shoo-ins. Like, there isn't going to be much surprise in the upcoming weeks. It's the draft class, the middle of the pack of the first round, where people can interchange and swap, and there might be someone we've completely missed off. Someone gets picked higher than another person. And a few shock picks that no one really...
There's always going to be the shocking picks on draft night.
Oh, I remember
guaranteed
the Raiders last year.
Clellan Ferrell instead of Josh Allen.
Yeah, the Raiders last year making... I mean, the crowd just didn't have a clue. Politely, because I know a lot of people might not watch college football, but it was like everyone was literally praying for Josh Allen, and it's not Josh Allen. Which, could you imagine if they don't take Joe Burrow?
Whoa.
We're taking Justin Herbert.
Wow.
Not that Justin Herbert's a bad player.
Was the case, though. That was the case a few years ago when the Browns had the first overall pick, and Sam Darnold was this consensus number 1 overall pick for a couple of months. Everyone was saying, Darnold's going to the Browns, Darnold's going to the Browns. Draft night, breaking news, John Dorsey, the Browns GM, he really likes Baker Mayfield. Number 1 overall pick, the Browns select Baker Mayfield.
Wow.
And it can happen. I doubt it happens this time, though, Joe Burrow.
No, I don't think so. But the Redskins, again, they're at number 2. The 2020 pick number 2 is the Washington Redskins. And again, another one that people are pretty much nailed on that this is going to be the pick. But I will leave it over to you. You've not had any difficult ones so far, Will. Who is the second pick in the 2020 draft?
Chase Young.
It is. Out of OSU, the defensive end, Chase Young. You've got some stats on Mr. Chase Young. We did go through them last week, but we'll go through them again for any of the new people.
Yeah, Chase Young. He had 32 solo tackles, 16.5 sacks, 6 forced fumbles. I mean, those stats speak for themselves. He's a disruptive edge rusher, the best in this draft by a long shot, and this, like you say, it's a nailed-on pick. The Redskins will be taking Chase Young, barring any unforeseen circumstances. Do
you think in a similar situation, because we have got a message from Rowan in the chat that says, in fairness, speaking on Joe Burrow, he would have had to say he wanted to play there, otherwise there would be severe backlash. However, when Manning was being drafted, wasn't it? He said, I'm not playing for the Chargers no matter when they draft me, and they still drafted him anyway. Yeah, him and his dad stated that we are not playing for the Chargers. So if you pick us, we're going to request a trade. And they picked him, and he was holding up the shirt, Eli Manning, like with a very, very sad face, and they had to trade him on draft night. Yeah, exactly. So I understand that you can say whatever you want, but sometimes people are just not nice enough to say anything, like, for example, Manning. But Chase Young, I don't think they'll have any problems with him at the Redskins. I think it's pretty much nailed on. He's a beast, and we've heard Ohio State coaches say he's better than Joey and Nick Bosa. And if that's true, Redskins, you can't pass up on him. No, definitely not. And I mean, if you're even close to Joey and Nick Bosa recently making a Super Bowl, Joey Bosa sadly has had his injury problems. But if you look at just how many sacks Chase Young got on the year. 16.5. I mean, that's incredible. Just by himself. Exactly. Like, he doesn't need the help of anyone else. But I think the Redskins are getting themselves a very, very, very good defensive end. Yeah. But we'll move to pick 3, which is a team, should I say, from my division, which is the Detroit Lions, another team that had a very poor season. But who do you have the Detroit Lions picking at number 3? Because you did say they could trade up. Not trade up. They could sneak in for Tua Tagovailoa. But you've not chose Tua.
No. I've chosen this player based off the fact that they could. Darius Slay maybe traded later on in the offseason as free agency approaches.
It looks like
I don't think they're going to take. I don't think they want to take Tua just yet. I think they're going to stick with Matt Stafford. So I've got them picking Jeffrey Okudah.
They are out of OSU, the cornerback. I do think a lot of this it doesn't rely on Darius Slay, but I think if they lose Darius Slay, this becomes
priority,
more of an important pick than it does originally. They could take Jeff Okudah, keep Darius Slay. You've got 2 hella good corners right there.
Yeah.
But if they lose Darius Slay, this then becomes, we need this because without this, our team will be as bad as it was last year.
Yeah. If they trade Darius Slay and don't pick this guy, the void at corner for them is huge. And we saw in the combine on the drills, this guy, his feet, his footwork is just unmatched.
Second to none.
He's just brilliant, and he's very long-rangey corner, very good in press. He got 3 interceptions. In college.
2 forced fumbles, 9 passes defended, and 20. I can't read my own writing. 29 solo tackles on the season. The man is a beast, and I think if they can keep Darius Slay, they're going to have a much improved record, and especially much better defensively.
Might be the best cornerback tandem in the league out there.
Do you know what? I can't think of one better off the top of my head right now, and I do think he is the best corner coming out of the division, coming out of the draft system.
Yeah, it's not even close.
No, it isn't. You're right.
It would be a great pick for the Lions. They might go for Tua, but let's be honest, they're picking 3. Whichever player they go for, they're going to get a really good player.
Oh, definitely.
I think Jeff Okudah fits the system really, really well. Will be a good pick for them.
Next up in the NFL 2020 draft is the New York Giants. They get the next pick. They're pick number 4. Who are the Giants drafting? Will.
They are taking Isaiah Simmons, linebacker / safety / defensive end / cornerback. He can do everything.
Just the man that they just defense. He's just defense.
Just defense
in general, and it's Isaiah Simmons out of Clemson. What impresses you most about? Well, apart from the fact he can play every single position, what impresses you most about Isaiah Simmons?
He's just, he can play anywhere on the defense. I know he's played at safety, linebacker, cornerback, but just his athleticism and his tendencies. He's got great awareness. As we can see by the stats, he's got 67 solo tackles, so he can make open field tackles. 7 sacks, he can rush the passer. A forced fumble, he shows he's got the eye for a fumble. And 3 interceptions, so he can make plays on the ball.
I was about to say, the fact he's got interceptions, sacks, fumbles, tackle, he's got.
Do you know one player in the NFL that can do what he can do right now?
No. Do you know what? Not to the level of sacks and interceptions in equal measure. Do you know what? No. Do you think he's better than half the safeties in the league, or do you prefer him in the linebacker? Because there is.
I prefer him as a linebacker, but he's a hybrid linebacker. He can drop back in coverage and he can also blitz. Yeah. He's got the best of both worlds because we can see he can drop back and intercept, but we can also rush the passer.
Do you think he lines up on every single play?
He's a 3-down linebacker.
I was going to say, do you think they utilise him to keep the offense constantly thinking about him and where he's going to line up? So they'll show a zone, then go into man-to-man.
Could be a zone. You could go into zone. You could send a zone blitz with Isaiah Simmons. Yeah. But you could also drop him back into safety as a coverage safety. Yeah. So there's so many options with Isaiah Simmons, and this Giants defense is lacking linebackers. I don't remember the last good linebacker they had, really. Obviously, they've released Alec Ogletree, so there is a big hole there. They need an offensive lineman. They've been needing no lineman for God knows how long now. But Isaiah Simmons, for his talent, you just can't pass up on it. You just can't let him get past you.
No, definitely not. And as we say, to be fair, the top 32 players that are going to get drafted, no matter what, they're good players. Yeah. But some of them are standout players in their position, which I think Isaiah Simmons is, in whatever position he plays. Because he's going to make an impact. I mean, it doesn't really matter where he plays because he does absolutely everything. Number 5 in the NFL 2020 draft. You'll see them a lot during this mock draft that we're doing in the first round. But at number 5, it is the Miami Dolphins. And are the rumours to be believed that number 5 is going to be the player we all expect it to be? Will.
I've gone with Tua Tagovailoa.
The rumours are true. Tua Tagovailoa from Alabama, the quarterback, is most likely in Will's draft to be selected for the Miami Dolphins, which I completely agree with. I don't see another option.
No. Maybe they trade up to 3 and get him ahead of Detroit just in case, but I think whatever happens, I think he will end up with the Dolphins. There were rumours at the Combine that the Dolphins don't see him as their franchise QB after the meeting, but I think when all is said and done, I think he will be a Miami Dolphin.
I do think so.
Yeah.
And I think if you look at his stats, the 33 in touchdowns, that's more than their Dolphins' current quarterback, Ryan Fitzpatrick. I know it's college level. Trust me, I know it's college level. Ryan Fitzpatrick only got 20 touchdowns on the whole season. He is 37, so he can learn from Ryan Fitzmagic, as people like to call him. And I think 33 touchdowns in 9 games compared to 20 touchdowns from Ryan Fitzpatrick, I'm pretty sure played every game of the 2019 season. In a poor Dolphins side, to be fair to Fitzpatrick, that Dolphins side shouldn't have done as well as it did.
No. But Fitzpatrick is known to... He's a journeyman quarterback. He's been to many different teams. And it just seems like now and again, he just turns into a Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
It's like, is this Ryan Fitzpatrick? But then some other games, he'll throw 5 picks and just... I don't even care anymore.
To be fair, the game against the Patriots absolutely carried the Dolphins to a win. Again, I mean...
And it frustrates you because you can see what he can... You can see what his talent, what his... potential is to be a good player, but he's been in the league a long time now. We know what Ryan Fitzpatrick is. This guy's an upgrade and he's the future.
Oh, definitely. And people were saying, was it not for, again, I'm going to bring up the question mark of his hip, because when you get sacked in the NFL, it hurts, and you worry that it's going to pop out of place again, and if it does, then that arguably at the end of his career, which is worrying for a man that's so young. But he was on course to be the best college quarterback we may have ever seen.
Yeah.
Sadly for him, in his absence, Joe Burrow arrived and fielded the best college season we've ever seen. So for him, he could have been the first overall pick in this draft.
I think he is, without the injury concerns.
Yep. I've got to agree with you. Do you think the concern with the Dolphins about the franchise QB, do you think it's a personality issue, or do you think it's because they're worried about his leg? Or his hip, I should say.
Could be a bit of both, maybe. I've not actually listened to Tua. I've never really watched a Tua Tagovailoa interview, apart from when he said he wants to play for the Dallas Cowboys, which we know isn't going to happen. But he's been the quarterback of one of the biggest schools in the nation, Alabama, and he's shown he can be a leader for that team. So I don't think his leadership's in question. I think it's just the injuries. I think they're just a bit... The Miami Dolphins are assessing these injuries because it's not just the hip. The hip's very serious, but he's had other niggling injuries throughout the last few seasons, which, you don't want to draft an injury-prone quarterback who could be out of the league in a few years. You want to draft a solid QB that's going to be a QB for a long time.
Not when I'd say in this draft class specifically, there are a couple good options. That they're not similar, because Tua is one of the best passers you'll see coming out of college, but you look at Herbert, Love, Hurts, even Eason if you want to. They're all decent quarterbacks without the injury issues that Tua brings. Yeah. But I think Tua's quality is so high.
I think he's got very high ceiling if he can stay healthy.
I think so, and I think, to be fair, he's not had a chance to reach it as much as he'd like to due to the injuries, and that's just unfortunate.
Yeah, it is unfortunate. It is unfortunate because when you can see when you see his talent and his potential, and that it could be hampered by injuries, it's unfortunate. But you never know. Maybe it's something he just doesn't get affected by in the NFL, which is unlikely because he's had an injury history. But we've seen a change of scenery can help a player, maybe.
Well, that to me is where the test comes in. It's fear of the unknown. The Miami Dolphins could fear him getting injured, but for all they know, they don't draft him. The team coming up next, the Chargers, draft him. Chargers go on to a Super Bowl with Tua as the quarterback, and they're left thinking, why didn't we pick him?
Exactly. And that's the risk you take. The risk you take. Especially quarterbacks, it's the most riskiest position in the league in terms of drafting, because look, you can look at all the stats you want. You just don't know what you're going to get. Ryan Leaf was a top prospect. He was in the same draft as Peyton Manning, and his talent was incredible. But his mental side of the game, he wasn't ill-suited. He was ill-suited to be an NFL quarterback, and he was out of the league in a few years. So you've got to be very careful with quarterbacks. This guy, though, I think will be a success, in my opinion.
Yeah, I don't think he'll take the opportunity for granted, given his injury issues and given the risk that he comes with, which is a bit of a shame because he's not a risk in terms of his playing. He's a brilliant player,
Just injuries.
But just injuries, and that's what it comes to. Number 6 in the 2020 draft, moving on, will be the team I have just mentioned, the Los Angeles Chargers. And we are moving from one quarterback to another. Who are the Los Angeles Chargers taking at number 6?
Justin Herbert out of Oregon.
The man who's never left Oregon, by the way.
No.
So it'd be different for him. He'd be going to LA. Justin Herbert out of Oregon, the quarterback. I think his stock raised a little bit during the draft, I would say. I think when you saw him on the ball, and for a man who's never really taken a snap under centre, you can see the quality he's got when he's passing the ball.
Yeah, he run a good 40 time as well for a guy of his size.
Oh, no, he did.
But I know what you mean, like his deep ball passing looked very good.
Yes.
And obviously he won Senior Bowl MVP. And Senior Bowl is a very good opportunity for players to play with talent of the same, that they're playing with players that have got the same skill level as them. Yeah. They're the top prospects playing in like a mini college game, and he performed really, really well in that game. That definitely raised his stock. I think he's, in my opinion, he's the third best quarterback in this draft. That's why I've got him going 6 for the Chargers. I've seen some other mocks where the Chargers don't take a quarterback at all, but there's questions there. Phillip Rivers is old.
Phillip Rivers is leaving.
He's leaving 100%. And do you want to take a quarterback from free agency and pay him a load of money when they might not be worth a load of money? And if you do sign a player like Teddy Bridgewater, or if you go after someone like Jameis, would it be a long-term deal, whereas this guy could be a quarterback for a long, long time?
There are a few good quarterbacks in free agency, to be fair. I think Ryan Tannehill is a brilliant quarterback in free agency.
I think he obviously had a good season. He got the Titans to the AFC Championship game, but that's an outlier because with the Dolphins, he was average, really.
And he was just, to be fair, he was handing it off most of the time to Derrick Henry.
Derrick
Henry. I think that's another thing where we looked at Jimmy G and we say that he had a decent season, because obviously if you lead your team to a Super Bowl, you had a pretty decent season, but most of it was literally turning around and handing the ball off.
And Herbert.
And a lot of play action.
Yeah, play action was a big part of that 49ers offense. Herbert threw for 3,471 yards. He threw for 31 passing touchdowns and only 6 interceptions. So the numbers look pretty good.
Do you think he's got the personality?
I don't see any problems with his personality. There's never been.
No, I mean like
you mean as a leader?
Yeah, a cultivating leader. The man that's got, for example, the leadership qualities, the confidence. Like when you're down, for example, us last season when we're down 20-0 at halftime to the Broncos. Cousins. Do you think Justin Herbert is the type of guy to drag his... Pat Mahomes, perfect example. The Kansas City Chiefs should have been out of the playoffs about 3 times. Or Texans, 49ers, Titans. Yeah, 3 times they should have been out.
Yeah.
And their QB dragged them through the mud to get them to where they have to be. So what do you think in terms of that? Do you think he's that guy?
I think it's too early to tell, because Pat Mahomes did that this season, but even when Pat Mahomes was coming out of Texas Tech, we didn't really know if he was an amazing leader, and people were saying Pat Mahomes' footwork's terrible. So it can be hard to sometimes judge players off the college level, because in the NFL they show qualities that we've never seen them have before. I think Justin Herbert working with veterans as well is only going to make him grow up a bit faster and become more of a leader. I know some savvy veterans might think, well, this young kid's coming in at quarterback, he's not going to tell me what to do, tell me what routes to run. He might get under his skin a bit, but I think he can be a leader. If he's been a quarterback this long in college and he's going to be picked this high in the draft, you would think he's got some leadership qualities.
Yeah, and he stayed an extra year in Oregon, just to hone his craft and make him an even better player, which I think again is a testament to him, because he could have just jumped the gun and gone straight in the draft last year. But I think staying around, increasing his stock a little bit more, another solid season, is fair enough. Number 7 in the NFL 2020 draft will be the Carolina Panthers. They will be at pick 7. Who do the Carolina Panthers take, Will?
I'm taking Derek Brown, defensive tackle out of Auburn.
And I think that is, do you know what? It's undoubtedly the position they need to improve. Yeah. I think personally. I think you look at Vernon Butler, who is currently one of the defensive tackles in Carolina, and solo tackles from Derek Brown. The man's a beast. Yeah, 33 solo tackles. That's 11 more than Vernon Butler on the whole season. Mm. Yeah, I'm going to reiterate just because I know college game is a lot different to the NFL. NFL is a lot higher quality, but even for Derek Brown, he's got the 4 sacks, he's got the 2 forced fumbles. He does everything well, and the man is a beast.
He is. He's the best DT in this draft.
I think so.
Definitely the best DT in this draft. And they also got they're going to release Dontari Poe as well, I think. So there's going to be a void at defensive tackle. Or was it Dontari Poe? Gerald McCoy, I think it's one of those two anyway.
I'm not sure.
Whoever they release, they're going to have a void there. And this guy, picking at 7, if he's still there with all these players that we've just mentioned, if they've already been drafted, he's probably the best available left on the board. And if it's team need, he's very, very talented as a defensive tackle, as a run stuffer. He can rush the passer as well. I think this is a great pick for the Panthers. A very safe pick, you could say.
Yeah, I don't think there's any risks involved. I think it is.
You know what you're getting with this guy.
Yeah, and I think it's one of them where you put him in. You can put him in as a starter, and you know he's going to do a fine enough job, good enough, shown enough at Auburn to respect a first round pick, which I think he fully deserves. And there's not much else to say really. Just a solid pick for the Carolina. They need to improve though. The Panthers. They've got Christian McCaffrey. I mean, when you've got a running back like that, we've seen with good running backs you can get. Because some people could say the reason the Panthers didn't get to the thing is because you can't rely always on your running game. Well, you ask the Titans and you ask the 49ers, you can very much rely on your running game.
Yeah.
So the Panthers need to improve in other areas to possibly protect, for example, Cam Newton.
Yeah. Well, a quarterback's not off the table here.
No.
If they like Jordan Love, they might take Jordan Love to sit behind Cam Newton. We don't know, but they definitely need to surround Christian McCaffrey because he's the focal point of their offense. Yeah. He's their team MVP. They need to surround him with more talent. Because
Definitely.
You can't have a player like that on a team finishing. They finished 5-11 or something.
They did finish 5-11.
They lost 8 straight games. You know, you need to use Christian McCaffrey, the talent you've got, to your advantage and try and make some playoff runs.
Definitely, I definitely agree. Another team that they didn't finish 5-11 actually. They finished 5-10-1. But they got that one tie on the first game of the season. It is the Arizona Cardinals who had the first pick in last year's draft.
Yeah, took Kyler Murray.
If I'm not mistaken, they picked Kyler Murray. They've rose a few stocks. They are now in 8th pick in this draft, and they are adding to their offense. According to you, Will, who are they taking?
I've got them taking CeeDee Lamb, wide receiver out of Oklahoma.
Definitely, and the controversy. He's your first wide receiver off the board. Yeah. What you'll notice is there's a lot of wide receivers in this draft class. There's a lot of quarterbacks in this draft class. Quite a strong QB draft class.
Corners.
Yeah, at corners. I mean, to be fair, it's a strong class in general.
It is one of the better classes I've seen in the last few years, definitely. The talent coming out.
But you've took him ahead of Jerry Jeudy. You've took him ahead of Henry Ruggs. What about CeeDee Lamb puts him up there for you?
I just think with the ball, obviously, you look at his stats. He's had 62 receptions, 1,327 yards, 14 touchdowns. You know, he's clearly a playmaker. But what I like about CeeDee Lamb is once he gets the ball, he turns into a running back and he makes players run after the catch. And with an offense with like Kyler Murray and Cliff Kingsbury, a lot of spread offense where they need to get the ball out quickly to the receivers. This guy can make plays. They've got Andy Isabella, who was a rookie receiver last year. They've got Christian Kirk, who's been a bit of a bust for them, I'd say. But this guy, in my opinion, when you look at all round receivers, he's the best in the draft. Closely followed by Jerry Jeudy. You could say Jerry Jeudy's a better route runner, but this guy is just he's just a playmaker, really.
And I think if you look at Kyler Murray's output last season with a very, very average Cardinals
receiving core as well.
And receiving, if you add another weapon for him to work off, I think that is only good things for Arizona. Yeah,
and if they bring back, obviously, Larry Fitzgerald, who's been there for...
Oh, wow, yeah.
Been there forever, but it's someone for CeeDee Lamb to learn off. And Larry Fitzgerald, even though he's quite old, he's still a very, very effective receiver. So if you've got CD as coming in as your number one, you can have Larry Fitzgerald stepping down a role to your number 2, and then Andy Isabella in the slot. I think that's a nice wide receiver tandem for Kyler Murray, who he's going to be their franchise quarterback. So you need to just surround your franchise quarterback with weapons.
Yeah, and I think we'll see a more consistent output from the Cardinals. Yeah, and I think it could be really a step in the right direction for them offensively. I mean, they'll have to figure out the other side of the ball as well. Whether they do that in rounds 2 or 3, or whether they do that in free agency, that's up to them. But I do think it's a fair enough judgment. I mean, there are arguments that Jerry Jeudy is better. I do think route runner-wise, he's better.
Yeah, he's the best route runner.
And I also think that it's fair enough to say that it's between him and Jerry Jeudy to be the number 1 wide receiver in the draft. But you've gone with CeeDee Lamb, that's just sure.
I just think if it's the system better, the Cardinal system better, I think
it's fair enough.
Yeah.
I think.
Well, I mean, whoever you're picking out of these two wide receivers, they're gonna make players in the NFL.
And even the third one we mentioned, like Henry Ruggs the third, he's not a bad.
He's no scrub, is he?
Wide receiver at all. Even though I'm disappointed he still didn't break the record. But we'll move on. At number 9, it's the Jacksonville Jaguars, who you will see again in the first round, because there is obviously teams in the NFL that can trade away players for draft picks in various systems.
Yeah.
So the Jags are at number 9. I think that was due to their record, though. That wasn't anyone they've traded for.
That's their pick.
That's the pick. And they are picking, according to you, in my opinion, one of my favourite prospects coming out of the combine, coming out of the college season. He's an absolute animal. But go on, tell everyone who you've got at number 9.
They're picking. Well, I've got them picking Mekhi Becton, offensive lineman from Louisville. This guy he's just a beast, isn't he?
I was gonna say
he's an absolute animal.
Sometimes words don't do it justice. Go and check this man's combine performance. Honest to God, the man is 6'5". He's got to be 350 plus pounds.
100%.
And he ran 5.11 seconds, 40-yard dash. How a man that big
can run that fast? I mean, you look at a 5'11" and you look at other players and you think that's not actually that impressive until you realise he's 6'5" and he's shifting a fair bit of weight around. Yeah.
The man is athletic. No matter what, he is athletic. And in terms of offensive line, I would not want to go up against this guy.
No. And this guy can be your anchor, left tackle or right tackle for many years to come. And what surprised me about Mekhi Becton is he's so big, but he's so nimble on his feet, and he moves so well for a big guy.
Yeah.
He moves like a tight end as an offensive lineman. It's a great pick for the Jags. Obviously, they've got Minshew, young quarterback, so they need to start building that O-line and protect him. And this guy, what a way to start. Best offensive lineman in the draft.
I don't see many people getting around him.
No.
I'm very excited next season to see who drafts him and to see some of these edge rushers or to see some of these players that are getting after the quarterback come up against him and try and get around him, because some trucks can't fit around him. Like, honest to God. But if you haven't checked his combine performance, honestly go and check. He is definitely worthy of a top 10 pick after this combine.
He could go as early as number 4 to the Giants. He's that good.
Yeah, no, you know what, you're not wrong.
He's a brilliant prospect.
He is.
Mekhi Becton.
And I mean, before the combine, I wouldn't have had him in the top 10 personally. I mean, but now I've seen his athletic capabilities, he shot straight up.
Yeah, he's incredible.
Number 10 pick in the 2020 draft goes to, not my words, the words of other people, dumpster fire. That is the Cleveland Browns. Wasn't my words, but Kevin Stefanski's new team, who we talked about earlier in the episode, maybe trading OBJ. So if they do trade OBJ, do they look for someone else in this draft?
Possibly.
But that was before you made this. So who are they taking?
I've got them taking Tristan Wirfs, offensive lineman out of Iowa. They
are taking Tristan Wirfs. So we've just had an O-lineman in Becton, and now we've got another one in Tristan Wirfs. Is there much disparity between the two?
Not a lot. I think Becton's better, but this guy is another one of those big offensive linemen who, you look at his combine performance, he ran a 4.58 40.
Yeah.
Which he's 6'4", 321 pounds, which even for his size, that's amazing.
That's impressive as well.
He's another very athletic offensive lineman, so the gap is definitely short. But this was a massive need for the Browns. Like their offensive line last year was probably the worst in the league, and Baker Mayfield, people harp on about how rubbish he was. His offensive line didn't help him quite a lot.
No, he does need
help.
I was going to say, to be fair, when it comes to quarterbacks, sometimes you do need to protect them just to see how it works. To see, with a bit more protection, does he become a lot better? Which, when you've got someone like Baker Mayfield, who I don't think has the footworks of your higher-end quarterbacks, it doesn't have the same pocket awareness. I think having an offensive lineman like Becton or Wirfs, whichever way these two go, will only be more helpful if they do stick with him.
Definitely. And they may look to improve the offensive line in free agency as well. But it's all about protecting the quarterback that you believe is your franchise quarterback. And Tristan Wirfs, the offensive line talent in this draft is very top-heavy. You've got those 4 brilliant offensive linemen. After that, it drops off a bit. So the Browns need to make sure that they get a top-end prospect with their 10th pick. I genuinely can't see them going any other position than offensive linemen. Whether it's Becton, whether it's Wirfs, whether it's Andrew Thomas, we don't know, but I've got them.
If they don't pick it in this first round, I don't think there's any of them top 4 drop into the second round.
I don't think there's any of them dropping past the top 20.
No, I completely agree. I think they've got their chance now. And as we've said before, they may want another player, but they can't pass up this opportunity that they've got. With the high picks, such as 10, they can get who they want. There's a lot of people still on the board, and a lot of talented offensive linemen still on the board, that Tristan Wirfs, or whoever it may be, is a necessity for the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah.
Moving on to pick number 11 in the draft, it is the New York Jets, who, according to Will, are taking, I'll mention it, they are taking Jedrick Wills. It's another offensive line.
Another one.
Out of Alabama, it's Jedrick Wills, a junior. This man ran a 5.05 second time at the combine. I mean, we've said enough. I feel like we've said enough about offensive linemen because it's 3 in a row here. But again, it can be any of these 3. I think in any pretty much order. I think the other 2 are ahead of Wills. I agree.
I think it's Becton and Wirfs fighting for the top spot, and I think it's Wills 3, and maybe Andrew Thomas, who you'll hear later in this draft, maybe creeping up onto Wills. But I think he's definitely 3rd or 4th. He's not as good as those top 2, but he's still, don't get me wrong, very, very good offensive lineman, and it feels a big need for the Jets as well, who also need offensive linemen.
Oh, I definitely agree with that, and I think, to be honest, we've said enough about offensive linemen that the good thing about this draft class is that all the offensive linemen are physically capable. Yeah.
They're all very good athletes as well, aren't they, as well as good pass blockers and run blockers. So I think whoever you're picking out of these, whoever you end up with out of these 4 offensive linemen, you're going to get a really, really good player.
Oh, definitely. And do you know what? Full credit to this draft class. At number 12, it is the Las Vegas, please don't call me Oakland Raiders. They are at pick number 12. Who have they got at number 12? I've got a feeling I know who it is.
Jerry Jeudy.
It is indeed.
Wide receiver, Alabama.
Arguably the best wide receiver in the class. I'm gonna keep.
Let me ask you a question. Do you think he's the best wide receiver in this draft?
I do. I think his ability to run the routes he does, and he can get past cornerbacks with relative ease, I'd say. You know, he's got the movement. He's
so about the field, doesn't he?
Yeah, he's so elusive. I think when you look at his receptions on the season, I think he's the best. I really do.
I put him with the Raiders at pick 12 because I think he just fits better with the Raiders, and I think CeeDee Lamb's a better fit with the Cardinals. Both teams are getting really good wide receivers, but since the trade of Amari Cooper, the Raiders they've struggled to get a top end wide receiver, and obviously they got Antonio Brown. We won't go into that.
Yeah.
We all know this. Antonio Brown needs to grow up. Tyrell Williams is a good number 2 option, but they need that dynamic number 1 option. Jerry Jeudy is the man. This season for Alabama, he put up 77 receptions, 1,163 yards, and 10 touchdowns. So the production's there.
Yeah.
Like you say, crisp route runner. He can run every single route on the route tree, and I think he run a 4.4540, which is just fast enough. So I think if he's still on the board at number 12 for the Raiders, he's the pick. He's the pick on draft night.
I definitely think so, and I think when it comes to big plays, and I think if there's a receiver you want to receive a big play, I think it's him. Yeah. I honestly do. I know that there are a lot of good wide receivers in this draft class, but I'm really high on Jerry Jeudy. However, what we have heard is that the media are high on Jerry Jeudy.
The league isn't.
Yeah, the league isn't. Now that's interesting to me. What do you think they've seen that we're missing?
It could be just to do with player meetings. Some teams might not like his personality because these reports have come out after the draft, after teams have met with players. It could be something that we don't know about.
Do you mean after the combine?
Yeah.
If this came out after the draft, it'd be a little bit.
Oh yeah, but yeah, you're right. The combine, we don't know what teams have thought about him. But like you say, it could be something to do with his combine meetings. I mean, I don't think it's going to hurt his draft stock ridiculously. I think again he's another player that don't make it out of the top 20.
No, definitely.
There's too many teams with wide receiver needs in the 1 to 20 picks. But it is interesting to hear about that, why teams wouldn't go for him. But we've seen from many Alabama wide receivers throughout the years that, Julio Jones, I think, was from Alabama, Amari Cooper, Calvin Ridley from Alabama. If you're picking wide receivers from Alabama, they're well coached and they're going to be very, very good players in the NFL. I think Jerry Jeudy's no different.
No, I completely agree. And no matter what, it's a good receiver. There is worry about the personality because sometimes, you don't want to let one bad apple spoil the cart.
Yeah.
As we've seen, and too many maybe he's got an ego, and too many big egos.
Possibly.
We saw what happened at the Browns
Maybe.
with quite a few big egos, and that's just hurt them. But the jury's still out on this one.
We don't know, do we?
No.
We don't know what the problem is. It might be a fake report, but we'll have to wait and see.
We don't know. But next up in the draft is pick number 13 for the Indianapolis Colts. And who are they choosing at number 13?
Jordan Love, quarterback, Utah State.
So this is the fourth quarterback off the board in the first round. You might think a lot of teams need quarterbacks. You're right. Jordan Love, his 2019 does not look pretty and does not look, for me, as a first rounder, politely. I think you look at his 2018, that's a first round. Yeah, that's a first round pick in 2018. But when it came to his 2019, 20 touchdowns with 17 interceptions, whereas 2018, 32 touchdowns with 6 interceptions. It honestly depends which Jordan Love you draft.
And I think it ends up what team he ends up on. I think if he goes to the Colts, like I've mocked him here, I think that's a really good pick for him because the Colts are a very stable organisation and they will get players. They will surround him with players to help fit their system like they did. I know they didn't draft offensive linemen for Andrew Luck for many years, but I think if he goes to Indianapolis with Jacoby Brissett and they battle out in training camp who's going to be starting QB, I think that's a great landing spot for him. If he goes to like an uncertain franchise that have shown in the past they haven't won a lot of games and they've always struggled to get talent on the team, I think he would struggle. But
politely, the Detroit Lions.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
No,
you're not
politely. Wrong. I mean, yeah. I'm not mocking them because
you're not wrong. I mean, they haven't won a playoff game in 25 years, something like that. So the stats are out there. But yeah, I think this guy, he's got all the attributes to be a starting quarterback. I just think he's a bit raw and he needs a bit of time. So I think Jacoby Brissett might stay in Indianapolis. We don't know that. But Phillip Rivers has been linked there a lot. And I think if Phillip Rivers goes there and they pick Jordan Love at 13 and others other needs, that would be a good pick for him to sit behind Phillip Rivers. And Phillip Rivers, once he's out of the league, you've got Jordan Love to step in and be a starting quarterback.
That could, you know what? It does sound well, but I do think, alongside Jacoby Brissett, should I say, these are two quarterbacks that it'd be very fun to see which way the Colts go next year, because I do think Jordan Love is a future starter.
Yeah.
Whether that be next season or, as we say, usually like a bridge quarterback, like Jacoby Brissett's the bridge for a year. He sits behind him, comes in for 1 or 2 plays, and then we see how he goes from there. Maybe politely, like, I don't want to say this in a mean way, but if Brissett gets injured, we see Jordan Love come and step in, that could really make his season. Which, for example, we saw with Tannehill. Yeah. He replaced Marcus Mariota, made his career.
That's how Deshaun Watson got his start as well. Tom Savage got injured, Deshaun Watson comes in, never loses his spot again.
Exactly, that's how things change in the NFL. Mm-hmm. So, for example, Jordan Love might have to sit for a year, wait for his opportunity, and then he has to take it when he gets it. Which, I think, to be fair, over the 2 years, I've seen enough production to warrant a first-round pick. But it is a gamble. For example, Definitely. The Tua question mark is injuries. The Jordan Love question mark is form and consistency. Yeah,
I mean, all quarterbacks are a gamble. But picking 13, if they pick Jordan Love at 13, I think it will be a good pick for the Colts. And people might say, why would you spend a premium pick 13 overall on a quarterback that might not even start? Quarterbacks are just a different position. We've seen Pat Mahomes picked him at 10. Many people are critical. Oh, why have they chosen Pat Mahomes at 10? Why have they used a premium pick on a quarterback that won't start next season? Look who's laughing now. The Kansas City Chiefs. So you don't know with Jordan Love what the future holds, but he's shown the intangibles to be a starting quarterback in the NFL. Give him his time. I think he will be a winner.
I completely agree. Speaking of quarterbacks, at number 14, it's the Tampa Bay Buccaneers with famous Jameis, who we love on the podcast for all the wrong reasons. But they have got pick number 14. They're not taking a quarterback, spoilers, but they might also be getting rid of Jameis, so they might not become a little soft spot for me anymore now they've got rid of famous Jameis. Or they may get rid of him, should I say. But who are they taking in their number 14 slot?
I've got them taking Javon Kinlaw, defensive tackle, South Carolina.
I mean, we mentioned him in the Combine preview, which if you haven't watched, go watch it back. It was last week. And thank you for everyone who watched that video. But we were very high on Javon Kinlaw, and he was in our top 5 prospects on the defensive side of the ball. And there is enough evidence from the season to prove that he is worthy of a top first-round pick.
Yeah, the stats don't jump off the sheet with Javon Kinlaw. 35 total tackles and only 6 sacks. That's still not a bad number for a defensive tackle. But I think the real value with Javon Kinlaw, he's more of a run stopper. And he's going to slow down that run. I think he's a very underrated prospect. But you'll see in the coming weeks, as we get closer to the draft, this guy will be. He might not be there at pick 14. He might get picked a bit earlier. The Colts might not want Jordan Love, or the Browns might need another DT instead of an offensive lineman. You just don't know. But I think this guy's got a very, very high ceiling. I think he fits the NFL game really well because with the more pass, you could say it's becoming more of a pass-heavy league. So you could say it's more need for pass rushers. But how do you get a good pass rush? You get your interior defensive lineman to request double teams. If your interior defensive lineman is making him being double teamed, that leaves pass rushers on the outside getting single, a single try against an offensive tackle. It's only gonna help the defense, and if you can stop a run game, it can cripple an offense because if an offense can't run and they're relying on the pass and they're relying on the QB too much, it can
for
really,
a lot of
really
teams that
offense.
rely on the pass, the running game, he can be a crucial asset.
Definitely.
Against them teams, and he can be employed as that.
Yeah.
And I think, to be fair, as you say, the stats don't jump off the sheet, but stats don't say everything about a player.
No.
Stats don't talk about personality, because if it did, Jerry Jeudy would be high up as first pick out of the wide receiver class. And I also think that when it comes to stopping the run game, he is crucial in this modern era, because you look at a lot of teams that like to utilise the run.
Yeah.
Like to utilise that play action. He will be crucial to that team. And I think it'll only be better for Buccaneers, who had, there wasn't any questions about them offensively last year. I mean, they had the 2 best wide receivers in the league.
They made offense, they just couldn't get stops.
Yeah, the only question mark was the quarterback on offense, so I don't think that's an issue they need to massively worry about.
Yeah.
On the defensive side of the ball, they do need to improve. And if they do improve, they can have a much better season when it comes to next year.
And Ndamukong Suh is a free agent as well for them, and he looks like he's going to be out the door. So they need a DT is a need.
At number 15 in the draft, the 2020 pick goes to the Denver Broncos, and we've had 2 wide receivers out the draft. So why don't we have another one?
Henry Ruggs III.
Ruggs III, Alabama wide receiver, 40 receptions on the season. 746 yards, 7 touchdowns on the season, and he ran a 4.27 40-yard dash. No questions about his speed. I mean, not at all.
No.
I mean, once he gets running, if he makes a reception and the defense have to catch him, well, that's it. Just take it to the house.
Get him over.
It's a touchdown no matter what. Why is he the 3rd, do you think? Because I don't think he offers enough weapons like Jerry Jeudy does and CD Lamb do. But I think his asset of speed is, to be fair, you look at Raheem Mostert, very, very fast individual, and he had a brilliant season. So I think that's where Henry Ruggs can compare his game to. But do you think there is more to him than just his speed?
I do think there's more to him than just his speed. But it'd be interesting to see how he uses that speed, because it's one thing to be fast, running down a straight line on a field. Can you do it on a football, on a pitch, running an in route?
Yeah.
While in press coverage, if he can use his speed properly and get out of breaks quick and get separation, well, yeah, he's going to be valuable. If he's just too fast to the point where he can't run routes properly, then it's a problem. But I think with Ruggs, I think being the number 2, Jerry Jeudy helped him out a lot because he wasn't getting the attention that he needed.
Yeah.
That's why I think he would be a great pick for the Broncos, because they already have Cortland Sutton. He would be a very good number 2.
I was going to mention him, to be honest, because Henry Ruggs was deployed as a number 2 wide receiver.
Yeah.
Do you think with Cortland Sutton he stays as a number 2 wide receiver and he just develops his game more and more? I was going to say, because when you look at the stats, they're not that good. I don't want to say not that good. They're still good, but they don't, as we said, jump off the page with other players, and stats don't say enough. Because his stats are a lot worse than Jerry Judy's, but that's because he was a number 2 wide receiver. So if he can put up these numbers for the Broncos while Cortland Sutton's putting up the big numbers, then they could be a real problem on offense last season. Because as we saw at the back end of last season, the Broncos became, politely, an arsehole team to play.
They did.
Like, if you needed a win to get to the playoffs, I wouldn't want it to come up against the Broncos last year.
No.
Because they knew how to...
They just knew how to win all of a sudden
Yeah.
in the season.
And if
you
not,
had to grind out the wins.
make a good game out of it.
Yeah.
You know, like when they went 20-0 up against us, they made it hard for you to win, or they beat you. Which, I mean, what an end to the season it was for them. I do think that if they add another number 2 wide receiver to replace, for example, Deshaun Hamilton, who got 1 touchdown on the year, 28 receptions, 297 yards, not bad, but I think Henry Ruggs is a much better number 2 wide receiver.
Yeah, I think the pick here for the Broncos would be Henry Ruggs. Look, next to Cortland Sutton, he's going to make plays. He's obviously the stats don't jump off the sheet, but I think he will be a very, very good receiver in the NFL, and especially as a number 2, he's going to be going up against number 2 cornerbacks. He's not going to be getting the attention like Cortland Sutton might be getting double teamed. They might be putting a safety over the top to stop Cortland Sutton, and that's when you need people like Henry Ruggs to step up, and I think he can do that.
No, I definitely think
playing for a big school as well. There's a lot of pressure on him to make players, and he's shown he can do that. Henry Ruggs. I think I've seen many mock drafts where he's gone to the Broncos, and I think he goes to the Broncos too.
You agree with them mock drafts? Number 16 in the draft after the Denver Broncos is the Atlanta Falcons. They are the midpoint of the draft.
Mm-hmm.
And who do you have them taking at number 16, the halfway point?
I've got them taking Clavon Chason, defensive end out of LSU.
Obviously, teammate of Joe Burrow, but on the defensive side of the ball. When it comes to the Falcons, I think obviously they have Julio Jones, don't they?
Yeah, Julio Jones, yeah.
Thank God, I was about to say, please don't tell me I've got that wrong, because I will feel like a really bad host. But no, they have it. So do you think it is the defensive side of the ball that Falcons need to worry about?
Yeah, definitely defense and pass rush in general. They don't have a marquee pass rusher, and they're probably going to lose Vic Beasley in free agency. So they do need another player on the defensive end to force pressure. I know that the Falcons' defense the last few seasons have suffered some terrible injuries. And they need to get more youth. You know, they need to get younger on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah.
Because obviously when players get older, they get more injured. So I think getting Clavon Chason in would be a very good pick. He had 60 total tackles, 6.5 sacks, and he had one forced fumble as well. So he's shown he can rush the passer. Granted, on a very good LSU defense where there's a lot of good players on there, so you could say he's getting a bit of an easier job because they might have to focus on Isaiah Simmons more than Clavon Chason. But I think he's probably the second best defensive end in this class.
I mean, and they are national champions. You can't really take that away. And as you say, when it comes to this youthful sort of what you get is a bit of enthusiasm, a bit of fearlessness. But I mean, a bit of fearlessness. If you didn't catch what I said there, you look at last year and you look at Nick Bosa, second out of the draft. He came into this league and tore it up because he didn't care who he was up against. He knew how to get past the blocker, and I mean he was teaching more experienced players how to do their job. Maybe that be because he's a Bosa and it's the family legacy, or just these college players that are coming up are to such a high level now.
They are. I agree. I think they are.
The college game has come so far, and I mean the NFL learns from the college game. And I think a guy like Clavon Chason, I don't think he'll be as good as Bosa this season, but I think if you line him up alongside, for example, you've got other defensive ends, for example, Chase Young, and you look at the effect that these are going to have this season coming in, I think you'll see a lot of them break onto the scene, just due to that fearlessness that they provide. Yeah,
I agree with that. Players, instead of coming into the league more timid, they seem to be coming into the league like, well, just another pass blocker that I've got to beat, just another team. So they do come in with that bit more fearlessness. And Chason's, even though he's still pretty young, he's played in big college bowl games. He knows how to make plays. Obviously, playing in the SEC, like I said earlier, he's coming up against the best competition in the country. He's not coming up against... It's not like he's coming from a small school and he's dominating people that aren't even going to get drafted.
Yeah.
He's taking on top offensive tackles. So I think Clavon Chason will be a very nice pick for the Falcons.
Moving on to number pick 17. Unfortunately, you are this low down in the draft, but it is my friend Will's favourite team. It is the Dallas Cowboys. Who do you have the Dallas Cowboys taking?
I've got us taking Christian Fulton, cornerback out of LSU. And I was flipping. I was struggling to choose between Christian Fulton and CJ Henderson, but in the end I went for Christian Fulton. I think he's more better scheme fit. Doesn't have any interceptions this past season, but in the draft
He does.
how many?
Got one.
One. Ah, fair enough.
Snuck one in there. Just
how many pass defenders did he have?
14.
Yes, exactly. So he's probably the best man corner in this draft, along with Jeffrey Okudah. He can shut down many corners. Again, like I said, with Chase on, played in the SEC, played against great competition, so you know what he's about. I think it's a very, very solid pick, and a one. The Cowboys need cornerbacks.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a surprise that LSU have got umpteen players in this draft and how good they were defensively last season. You do need corners because Byron Jones is going to be a free agent. He looks like he's going to the Eagles. And Anthony Brown is a free agent as well, which leaves you with how many corners?
We'd have Jordan Lewis and Chidobe Awuzie as our corners, and Chidobe Awuzie was our number 2, and Jordan Lewis was our number 3. So we're going to be losing our number 1 corner and our nickel corner, Anthony Brown. Anthony Brown usually swaps in and out with Jordan Lewis as the slot corner.
Yeah.
So we need another corner on the outside, maybe cement themselves as that number 1 corner.
And I think Christian Fulton is a good enough player. I mean, you look at the passes defended and, man to man, I am very excited to see him come up against some of the best in the league. And I actually think Dallas is the perfect fit for him.
All right.
It's a new scheme under Mike McCarthy. He decides what plays. And I think a nice little refresh in Dallas would be quite nice. And, maybe you lose Byron Jones and maybe you lose Anthony Brown. But if you bring in another young player in Christian Fulton, he could be your number 1 corner come next season.
Definitely.
In my opinion, personally.
Yeah, I agree.
And at number 18, we'll move from Dallas to a team that is back again.
Another first-round pick.
And by the way, they will be back again. It is the Miami Dolphins at pick number 18. And who will they be taking for their second pick of the first round?
I've got them taking Andrew Thomas, offensive lineman out of Georgia.
And another beast.
And I think if they get him at 18, that's an awesome pick for the Dolphins. Obviously, they traded away Laramie Tunsil to the Texans last season. They're starting left tackle, so offensive line help is needed. And I think Andrew Thomas is probably he's one of the top 4 offensive linemen in the draft.
I was going to say it's crazy to me that so many of these offensive linemen are so good. And for a man like Andrew Thomas to be dropping this far down the draft, whereas last season a man like Andrew Thomas could have gone in the early first round, but I think that's just due to who they've got. The other players in the draft, he might not level up, he might not be as good as them, but he's still a solid pick. And to get him at 18, the Dolphins will be improving all over the board.
Definitely, and it's like I said, it's a need. Offensive line is a need. And if Andrew Thomas does fall to 18, which I can see him falling because of the quality of the other players and team needs after the Jets, who picked their last offensive lineman, Tristan Wirfs. Was it Tristan? Yeah, Tristan Wirfs was the last offensive lineman picked in this mock draft.
It was, yeah, it was.
So Andrew Thomas will be the 4th picked. But yeah, I think Andrew Thomas, great pick for the Dolphins.
Oh, I definitely think so. And at number 19, it's another team that we're going to see again. It's the Las Vegas Raiders. They will be taking... Will?
They will be taking Patrick Queen.
You missed my cue there. I pointed to you and everything. You missed my cue. But it is another man out of LSU, but this time it's the linebacker, Patrick Queen. And it's a massive need when it comes to the Las Vegas Raiders. A list of some of them that they've got. They've got Will Compton, Tahir Whitehead, Van Taze, or Van... How would you say it?
Let's just say none of them jump. None of them are incredible players.
No, Van Taze, perfect. As you've said, he's a very dirty player.
Oh, Vontaze perfect, yeah. Very dirty player.
He had 4 games, 11 tackles. I mean, Patrick Queen will be a breath of fresh air to the linebacker position for them. I mean, 37 solo tackles on the season, 3 sacks, and even an interception on the season for Patrick Queen. I think on the defensive side of the ball, a lot of these prospects out of LSU are very, very talented. And I think for the Las Vegas Raiders, They have got multiple picks in this first round, so they need to address this position.
Yeah, linebacker's a big need for the Raiders, and he's probably after Isaiah Simmons, probably the best linebacker in the draft. So they need another field general, someone that's going to call the plays on defense and be a leader of that defense. And Patrick Queen coming from a team like LSU, who won the national championship, I think it would be a great pick.
I think there'll be a lot of leaders that come out of LSU. I think there'll be a lot of confident individuals because, I mean, if you're coming off a national championship...
Oh, yeah.
And is that one of the most talented teams to come out of college?
Probably. I mean, you know, obviously Alabama have their first-round picks every year. But LSU, yeah, they really burst into the scene this year, didn't even lose a game. So the players on that defense were absolutely incredible. And we could be looking at like 4 or 5 first-round picks on defense from LSU, which is just... absolutely incredible, really.
And another man from LSU, which we won't mention because you've not chosen running back in the first one, but I love him. And that's Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who's not going to be picked in the first round, but I think is worthy of a first-round pick, you know. Joe Burrow says he's the best player he's ever played with, but that to me is a testament to how much talent is on the LSU defense and offense. But another man out of LSU, Patrick Queen, the linebacker, being chosen at pick number 19. And it's another team we're going to see again. It's
Jags again.
The Jacksonville Jaguars are number pick 20 in the 2020 draft. And who are they choosing?
C.J. Henderson, cornerback, Florida.
And we look at corners in this league. We've had Jeff Okudah, who we said is miles above every single person in the draft. But C.J. Henderson will be staying in Florida if this is to happen. He's Florida. Was it Florida State he was at?
Florida Gators.
Florida Gators he was at. It's hard. You know, you missed the state out. But Florida, and he will then move to Jacksonville, which I don't think will be that much of a problem because he's already in Florida anyway, so I'll be used to the climate, the conditions. Mm-hmm. And I think it's a position they need to address. Jacksonville have a lot they need to address because they did trade away
AJ Boyer and
Jalen Ramsey last season.
So they've got rid of 2 of their starting corners. It's a need. And this guy's, if Christian Fulton's picked and Jeff Okudah's off the board... Well, Jeff Okudah will be off the board. He'll be well off the board. But if Christian Fulton's off the board, this guy's the next best thing. At cornerback, very, very, very rangy. Another good man-to-man corner. Bit of a tackling issue, but he is a corner. He's not a linebacker. You're not going to be looking at his tackling. I think he had about 11 passes defended. So, yeah, he's a very, very good corner, and it fills another need for Jacksonville.
Yeah, and I think that'll definitely help them on the defensive side of the ball. And as we've said, Jacksonville needs to address a couple of areas, and this will be a massive, massive plus if you can get this man. If he drops this far, which is insane to see a man of this talent dropping this far.
The draft is just stacked full of talent this year.
Yeah, I think, as I say, the top 32, there's no question that these deserve to be here. And another man that I can't believe has dropped this far, but it's number 21 for the Philadelphia Eagles. They get number 21 pick in the 2020 draft. And again, another man. How's he dropped this far?
T. Higgins, wide receiver, Clemson.
And I feel he's a victim of circumstance because you look at the other people that have been drafted at wide receiver before him. The only reason he's fallen this far is because of that.
Yeah. 4th best wide receiver in the draft, in my opinion. Obviously, Jerry Jeudy, C.D. Lamb, and Henry Ruggs are all brilliant receivers, and that's the only reason he's been pushed down the board. Any other draft, this guy could be a top 15 pick. I know he didn't test at the combine, which might hurt his draft stock a bit. But
depends how he does on Pro Day.
Yeah, that's a good point. See how he does in his Clemson Pro Day, but this guy is just the ultimate jump ball receiver. 6'4", is he? Is he 6'4"?
I think so. He's extreme. Do you know what? I'll get it up. He's extremely tall. He's the one you want in the end zone.
Yeah, I think he's 6'4", and he's that big possession receiver. I know the Eagles have Alshon Jeffrey, but there's rumours that Alshon Jeffrey and Carson Wentz don't get along, so they need to improve at wide receiver.
6'4", so he's the kind of guy you want to run on the outside.
Outside receiver, yeah.
And leaping above pretty much every corner in the league. I mean, it's a shame he wasn't at the combine because I'd like to see his vertical jump because that would have been just fun.
Yeah, I'd also like to see a guy of his size, what his 40 time was.
Yeah.
How fast he is down the field.
You can look at it as, to be honest, he doesn't want to risk getting injured, but you could also look at it as maybe it wasn't going to be as impressive as some of the other people. Yeah. So, I mean, to be fair, if you're in a wide receiver class with Henry Ruggs, you're 40-yard dash
you're
time,
going to be slower than Henry Ruggs anyway, aren't you? So.
Exactly. So maybe that was part of it, but I think in terms of wide receivers, and I mean, you look at the Eagles last year, it was more like a hospital. Let's be fair. Everyone was injured.
It was, and their wide receivers are practice squad players.
Yeah, literally. And I think if you bring in T. Higgins, I think it gives Carson Wentz another weapon, which I think he needs because I feel if you have a player like T. Higgins on the outside, for me, the Eagles surpassed my expectations this season just gone. And if they had T. Higgins and get everyone back fit before next season, they could have quite a nice offensive lineup going into next year.
Yeah, definitely. And with this guy being as big as he is and a possession catcher, he's a reliable pair of hands for Carson Wentz that he can look for, maybe like a safety valve.
Yes.
Very much like Zach Ertz. He relies on Zach Ertz a lot, maybe
Definitely.
too much, so you need another option out there. And T. Higgins, I think he will still be on the board at 21. Be a good pick for
I think
the
so,
Eagles.
just due to the other wide receiver. Which, again, it's an unfair knock on him because if there was only just Jerry Jeudy in the draft, he could have been up there in the top 15 picks, but victim of circumstance. Number 22, another team that made the playoffs and another team with the pick at 22. It's Buffalo Bills. Who are they taking, Will?
Another wide receiver coming off the board, Jalen Reagor from TCU, wide receiver.
Is this a big drop from the other four? Because I think it's not a massive drop, but the talent is definitely lesser.
Definitely lesser, but I think Reagor, he had a pretty good combine, Reagor, apparently, with the drills. I think he ran a 4.47 40-yard dash, which is still pretty good.
No.
And apparently on the wide receiver drills, he was really, really good. And I think he goes this high just because of, like you say, the wide receivers in this class, they're all really, really good, and they all could go really, really early. But the Bills do need a wide receiver. I think maybe they might choose to go with Justin Jefferson instead from LSU, who's also a very good wide receiver. But Jalen Reagor, I think he fits their scheme really well. He only had, 600? He had 611 yards and 5 TDs or 43 receptions. So like Henry Ruggs.
Yeah.
The stats don't jump off the page, but a man that's very, very fast. That offense with Josh Allen, the wide receivers he has Cole Beasley and I forgot the name of the other wide receiver, John Brown. They've got some pretty good receivers out there, and I think he fits the mold like those two. Very, very quick, smaller type receivers that help Josh Allen. Josh Allen needs to get the ball out quickly to his playmakers on the outside. Jalen Reagor would be a nice pick for the Bills.
Yeah, I think Josh Allen needs another help on offense, and I think Jalen Reagor, again, I don't think he's up to the level of the other four, but it's not a bad pick for the Bills. Next up, maybe a surprising one because no one usually sees them this far low, but it is pick number 23. Off a poor season for their standard, it's the New England Patriots. Who are they picking at number 23?
Well, a poor season, but not a poor pick because they are getting Grant Delpit from LSU, safety.
I absolutely love this guy.
It's a great pick.
It is a brilliant safety, and we've talked about LSU endlessly. And when I saw that this guy's dropping to 23, that is outrageous. But the only reason I think Isaiah Simmons is better than him is because he can line up in so many different positions. But if I'm looking for an out-and-out safety, is there anyone better?
I think he's probably the best safety in this class, just ahead of Xavier McKinney.
Yes, very, very
The
true.
only knock on Grant Delpit is where I think he'll fall, but is the tackling issue because he missed. I think it was like 25% of his tackles in the last season for LSU, which was a regression, and he also had less interceptions in the CFP College Bowl game when the tackles needed to be made. He made them, but I think it's a need for the Patriots because McCourty, their safety, is a free agent. He's knocking on a bit. So I think getting a young player in the back end who can make plays like Grant Delpit would be a good pick for them.
I mean, if you're a good enough safety and you can read the game well enough, you don't have to make the tackles because you can get to the ball first. It doesn't always work like that.
Yeah, and another positive about Grant Delpit is I think he's about 6'2", 6'3", so he could shadow a tight end just for his pure size. He could cover a tight end because I know tight ends are not as quick usually as wide receivers.
No,
they
they're
can't run the routes wide receivers can.
They're a lot bigger.
And he obviously you could say he can't cover like a cornerback, but going against tight ends, he doesn't need to. Just needs to use his strength and his athletic ability to stop the tight end. So I think he can be utilised in many different ways on a defence. And at 23, that's a very good pick for the Pats.
Again, can't believe he's dropped this far down, and I think he's got very good reading of the game and a very good reading of the quarterback and the way he's going to go. At number 24, it is the New Orleans Saints. They are picking Justin Jefferson. He is LSU wide receiver. I am sick of saying the word wide receiver because I think there's 6 now we've mentioned. But there he is on the picture performing at the combine. A fair enough decent combine from Justin Jefferson. I'll probably get up some of his stats in just a moment. What is your opinion? Another man out of LSU. Another one of Joe Burrow's weapons that he had. And I mean, if you are a national championship winning wide receiver, that can go high on clubs' minds.
Yeah.
I mean, Jerry Judy didn't make it to national championship, you know?
I mean, his team didn't even make it to the CFP playoffs, but yeah, this guy is just a playmaker. I mean, if you look at his stats, 111 receptions, 1,540 yards, 18 touchdowns. That is crazy. And we say Burrow had the big stats. This guy had the big stats for a wide receiver, and I think the Saints getting him at 24 would be a very good pick, because you look at their wide receivers after Michael Thomas, it's kind of like, who do they really have at wide receiver? We don't really know. I know they signed Cameron Meredith a few years ago, didn't really work out. Ted Ginn, he's getting a bit older. So yeah, and this guy next to Michael Thomas as a number 2 wide receiver would be a great pick for the Saints. And Breeze, he's getting older. Like I said, you need to surround him with more weapons to make his job a bit easier. Great pick for the Saints, Justin Jefferson.
Justin Jefferson, some of his stats. He ran a 4.43 at the combine in a 40-yard dash.
See, that's electric, that.
A 37.5 vertical jump. But some interesting stats. He's number 1 in NCAA in catches in 111 in 2019.
Mm-hmm.
He is number 2 in the NCAA in touchdowns and number 3 in the NCAA in yards. So for a man with all them stats, why is he not being talked about above the others?
I think it's just you could say CD Lamb and Jerry Jeudy, the main 2 wide receivers in this draft, closely followed by Henry Ruggs. But I mean, I'm not too sure really, because when you look at the stats, if you should look at the stats, they're like, wow, who is this guy?
Do you think it's division?
Maybe.
And the team he was on?
He was obviously playing for LSU and he won the national championship.
Yeah.
So people could say he's a product of Joe Burrow.
That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, you could say he's a product of Joe Burrow, and obviously with their play calling, their LSU offensive coordinator's gone to Carolina now. So you could say he made Joe Burrow's life easier. He could have also made Justin Jefferson's life a lot easier.
Yeah.
Other weapons like Clyde Edwards-Helaire on offense, when you've got him in the running back position, they can't put all focus on this wide receiver because they've got to account for him. They've got to account for Joe Burrow.
Exactly. They had so many weapons.
Exactly, yeah. So maybe he took advantage of his location and having so many weapons on offense. But yeah, this guy, I think he's definitely a first-round wide receiver. The Saints would be a good fit for him. You could also put him. The Bills might take him over Jalen Reagor if they really like him.
Yeah, and I think the combine helped him. I think that's where, for example, T. Higgins went a little astray, maybe not performing, but it is all down to them. You know, they may say, I'm better in in-game situations. My physicals might not rack up, but look at me in an in-game situation and I can tear anyone apart, which is fair enough. At number 25, well, it's the best team in the NFL. It's my favourite team, and that is the Minnesota Vikings. Last season, we made it to the divisional round.
Mm-hmm.
Is this the man to help us get to the next level? And that man is... I'm going to mention it because
I'll let you mention it. And you do like the prospect as well,
I do. It's Austin Jackson out of USC. He's an offensive tackle, protects Kirk Cousins. Look at that face. He looks shocked to be picked by us. I still love the photo. But the story, which I mentioned last week on the Combine preview, if you want to go watch that video, it's the last one up on the channel. That was the NFL Corner. Great personality. Great man. His sister had cancer, and he was a match in terms of bone marrow to help her stay alive, and he donated his own bone marrow, so that took him a bit of a time out the game.
Mm-hmm.
But he's back, and I love this pick because I love the personality and I love the position in terms of that is exactly what we need. Protect Kirk Cousins because he's not quite got the mobility of other quarterbacks.
No.
And yeah, I just love the guy in general.
I think it's a great pick for the Vikings because they need offensive linemen, and this guy is another player from USC who could be that anchor at left tackle for many years to come. And Kirk Cousins, he needs the protection, because when he gets the protection, he's shown with his ability to throw the ball, he can dice the defense up. It's just getting that protection and giving him more time in the pocket.
Yeah.
So I think offensive lineman is the pick at 25 for the Vikings. Whether it's Austin Jackson or somebody else, I don't know, but I think he's, after these O-linemen we've mentioned, the 4 main dudes, I think this guy's probably 5th best.
Yeah,
and I think
I like the pick.
It's a good pick.
I like the pick.
It's a solid pick for the Vikings. A safe pick.
I definitely think so. I mean, we have to look at obviously what happens in free agency. We've got a few people out of contract, but I do think shoring up that offensive line last season, we have to, because as I say, Kirk's not as mobile, but once he gets time to pick the passes, I mean, look at that against the Saints. Look at it against the Broncos. He can carry us to victories.
Mm-hmm.
Just give him the time.
Yeah.
Next up, we will see them again. It is
Dolphins again.
For the last time now. It is the Miami Dolphins. And their last and final pick is another man that I'm very high on. Another safety.
Xavier McKinney, safety from Alabama.
And, I mean, what we said earlier about Grant Delpit, I think these two are very interchangeable.
Yeah, whether it's him or Grant Delpit going as the first safety, it could be either of them. But this guy
Isaiah Simmons, if you want to call him a safety.
If you want to call him a safety, yeah, but I think he's more of a linebacker. But, yeah, he can play safety. But, I mean, like, pure safeties,
yeah,
they played safety just in college. It's either him or Grant Delpit. But this guy is brilliant safety for Alabama. If you just look at the stats, he can do a bit of everything. 95 total tackles, 3 interceptions, 3 sacks, 5 passes defended. You know, I mean, he's done everything.
I mean, the tackles, for me, is what bounces off that
95
total. Is that solo?
95 total tackles.
Oh, right. I was about
solo
to say.
tackles, I think it is still in the 60s. It's still very high. It's still getting near Isaiah Simmons level.
I'm going to get that up because, I mean, just in terms of 95 tackles in general, is quite impressive.
Yeah, he's a ball hawk in the back end. And he can also play a bit of cornerback as well. He can cover receivers, as you can see with the 5 passes defended.
59 solo tackles.
59, yeah. So it's still a really good number.
That's
compared
impressive.
To Isaiah Simmons for a safety as well. I think the Dolphins getting him at 26 would be an absolute steal. Maybe he didn't crack the top 20. I've seen him being linked to a lot of different teams in the draft. But the Dolphins, they are getting a bit older at safety. Rashad Jones could be leaving the team this year, and they also traded away Minkah Fitzpatrick to the Steelers for a first-round pick, which everyone was saying, it's a great deal because Minkah, is he any good? Goes to the Steelers, he makes an all-pro team.
So
they need to replace him in some way. McKinney would be a nice pick.
And I do think, looking at the draft that you've mocked up here, the Dolphins are getting. Would you say they're getting worth what they traded away?
Time will tell on how the players do, but they're plugging holes. That's the most important thing.
Yeah,
they're getting players that fit the system, and players that they really need. They get Tua, their starting QB, Andrew Thomas, offensive lineman, who will be protecting Tua as an offensive lineman, and this guy in the back end to make plays on your defense. That's 3 very good picks for the Dolphins, and if that did happen on day 1 of the draft, I think the Dolphins fans would be leaving the draft very, very happy.
Oh, improving both sides of the ball,
exactly.
know, and that's. I mean, compared to they still did 5-11 last year with the team they had. Add these in, and I mean the Dolphins will improve next year.
And free agency, they've got the second most cap in free agency. They could go out and make some big splash signings on some players to improve the team.
Are Miami the team to look out for going into the new season? Who knows?
Maybe.
But a team that did have a very good season is the 27th pick in the draft, and that is the Seattle Seahawks. You've got them choosing
AJ Epinesa, defensive end, Iowa.
Do you think, because I always think, again, Seattle, unfortunately for them, was run like a hospital last year because they didn't even have a running back.
Yeah.
So they brought one. Do you think, it was hard to judge Seattle last year because do you think they could have done a lot better without the injuries? And do you think, for example, the defensive end like AJ Epinesa on the defensive side of the ball is where they need to improve the most?
Yeah, and especially with Jadeveon Clowney, he's the big question mark going into free agency.
He is, yeah, he is.
He's a marquee player, and I don't think Seattle have the money to re-sign him because he wants to break the bank. But he said he also wants to play for a winning team, which I don't understand. Choose one or the other because usually the winning teams don't have a lot of cap room. But
that's why they're winning.
Exactly, yeah, that's why they're winning because they've got big players signed up to big contracts. Unless you're the Patriots, but yeah, Jadeveon Clowney is a big question mark, and just the defensive ends in general don't put up big numbers. Russell Wilson's been carrying this team since the Legion of Boom, where they had Earl Thomas, Cam Chancellor, Bobby Wagner, Richard Sherman. Since that's broken up, the defense has been a bit questionable, and it's all been about Russell Wilson carrying this team to the playoffs. I think getting AJ Epinesa at 27 will be a great pick. I think his value has dropped since the combine. He ran a terrible 4. I think it was like a 5.04, which is slower than Tristan Wirfs, offensive lineman.
Yeah, and for a defensive end, for a man who needs to get off the blocks quick to get past a blocker.
But I don't think that's Epinesa's game. I think he's more of a defense. He's not one of those speed rushers who's going to fly around the outside. He's more of a technical pass rusher who's going to use his hands to beat the defensive ends because he got 11 and a half sacks in college, which is a pretty good number.
You were high on. I'll be honest. You were high on AJ Epinesa because last week when we did the combine preview, I didn't even put him in my top 5. You made me put him in.
Yeah, well, he's still a very good player. I think. I mean, I think he's still probably the second best pass rusher in the draft. Maybe it's either him or Cleavon Chason.
Yeah.
But I'm just looking at it from a team's perspective. They take the combine very seriously, and if a player doesn't run a good 40, it sounds silly because speed isn't everything, but it can affect their draft stock a lot. But I think if he does fall to 27 to the Seahawks, a contending team, they're getting a very good pass rusher in him, and I think he will be very good in the NFL just because of how technically of a good player he is, and he fits a lot of systems.
Do you think this pick depends on Jadeveon Clowney? Because Jadeveon Clowney is a brilliant, brilliant player.
Yeah.
Do you think if he stays, I know it's not a lot of cap room and he wants to play for a winning team, so that winning team is Seattle. They're a winning team. If he stays, do you think they need AJ Epinesa?
If he's there, I still think they'd pick him just because I think Clowney, he's not a out-and-out defensive end. He's more of an outside linebacker that can rush the passer and make open field tackles as a coverage linebacker. If you're looking for a complete defensive end, AJ Epinesa is more of the guy you're looking for.
Yeah.
If he is there, it's the pick, but he might not fall that far. We just don't know. I think he's one of the big question marks of this draft, whether he goes a bit later or a bit earlier. Like the Falcons might take him instead of Cleavon Chason.
That's a good...
we just don't know.
I think his combine might have scuppered that.
Yeah. Or the Bills might want a defensive end instead of a wide receiver. They could look into AJ Epinesa.
But I think the wide receiver stock drops if you go to the second round.
I don't think it does.
Do you not think? Do you think there's that many that they can go through the first round as well? I'm not sure.
Well, there's LaVisca Chenault. I haven't put in this draft. There's Denzel Mims, who had a phenomenal combine out of Baylor. So there are receivers there. So the Bills might decide to take a defensive end instead. I think whoever does end up with this guy is going to get a really good player, solid player.
Another team with a standout year was the Baltimore Ravens. They were the consensus team to make it to the Super Bowl after the amazing season that they had. Didn't quite work out for them. But who have you got the Baltimore Ravens picking up in the draft?
I've gone taking linebacker Zach Bourne. I think is how you pronounce it.
I was going to say Zach Bourne.
Bourne, out of Wisconsin.
I mean, looks like pressure doesn't get to him because he was absolutely loving his college life right there.
He just realised he's going to go play with John Harbaugh and Lamar Jackson.
Literally, he's just found out he's going to a team that is on the up, in my opinion, in
Baltimore Ravens.
Baltimore. Thank you. Don't know why I forgot. They were literally on the screen 2 minutes ago. But no, have you seen enough for him? I mean, when it comes to these latter end first round picks, the picks that you want have already gone. I think really the top tier talent has gone already.
It has. Yeah, it's more of like when you're looking at late first round, it's more of they're edging close to round 2 talents than top round 1 talents. But this guy
doesn't mean they're not bad players though.
No, you can get brilliant players at the back of the end of the first round. We've seen that in many different drafts. But Zach Bourne, he fills up the stat sheet: 53 total tackles, 12.5 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, and an interception. So he's shown he can rush the passer, he can drop back in coverage. He could be a pretty good linebacker for a contending team like the Ravens to plug in there, make that defense even better than better than it already is. And if they're looking to make another Super Bowl run, you're going to need hybrid players who can rush the passer and drop back in coverage. And based off the stats and the games he played for Wisconsin, Zach Boone. How did you say it?
Bourne,
that's it.
Zach Bourne.
I'm calling him Zach Bourne.
I don't know. It doesn't really matter. But on the offense side, Zach. And on the offense side of the ball, I don't think there's anything Baltimore need to worry about. Last season proved more than enough that they are fantastic on the offense side of the ball. Their defense, I mean, when they were trying to stop Derrick Henry, it just wouldn't work. So they might need to just shore up a little bit on the defensive side of the ball to make a run to the Super Bowl. Yeah. And speaking of the team that beat them, the Tennessee Titans, they are number 29 in the draft. Free agents such as Derrick Henry and such as Ryan Tannehill. But are they improving on the offense? According to Will, they're not.
They're getting Trevon Diggs, cornerback, Alabama, brother of Stephon Diggs, from Kieran's Vikings.
Yeah. I was kind of gutted we're not taking him, but I like the Austin Jackson pick as well.
I think offensive line's a bigger need.
But I do kind of want to see Stephon with Trevon. But the idea of Stephon v. Trevon
would be interesting.
It's still a good little thing. Again, I think in corners we've dropped down a little bit from the Jeff Okudah, but he set such a high standard that it's going to be hard for these teams to get up to that level, which it's fair enough. I think he's a solid corner. He said he'd mark Stephon with ease. So when it comes to man-to-man corners, he might not be up there with the top 2 or 3, but a late first rounder, I can definitely
see it, and especially it's a need for the Titans. Like I said, Logan Ryan's a free agent. He might be getting a big payday. The Titans might not be willing to pay him that with impending free agents like Derrick Henry and Ryan Tannehill. They've also got Malcolm Butler, who since they signed him to a big deal, he's been a bit of a question mark. He's never really fulfilled his potential, so they might be looking to move on from him. In the midst of that, you need to get new cornerbacks in. Trevon Diggs at the back end of the first round would be a nice pick for them. I think if it's their scheme well. Yeah, I think it's a good pick for the Ravens. I mean, when you're picking 29th in the draft, you're just looking to get good value and best player available. I think the Ravens do that with Trevon Diggs.
Oh, yeah.
At pick 29.
Titans.
Who did I say?
Ravens.
Yeah, Titans, sorry.
No, the Titans. Zach's gone to the
Zach's, yeah, he was chilling out, wasn't he? He was going to the Ravens.
No, but I do agree. I think Trevon Diggs is a sensible pick at 29. As we say, to be honest, this is late first round picks, but that's because he did so well last year, which, it's a shame,
Yeah.
But next up is the Green Bay Packers. Sorry for the black screen there. But no, that is the Green Bay Packers. My fiercest rivals. Who are they taking at pick number 30 in the draft?
I'm taking Kenneth Murray, linebacker from Oklahoma.
Which I did question whether he was related to Kyle. I got told no, so I don't know. But I got told
I haven't checked, but I don't think he is.
I don't think so either. But who doesn't have the might be related to Glenn Murray, football player from Brighton. You never know. But no, Kenneth Murray out of Oklahoma.
Andy Murray, maybe. Who knows?
Bill Murray, maybe. Who knows? Do you want to do another one, or should we carry on?
I think we should carry on.
Yeah, we'll carry on.
Yeah. Instead of naming every single Murray we know.
Murray from a hit TV show Impractical Jokers.
I've never seen the show.
No, unbelievable.
I'm going to be honest.
But no, Kenneth Murray, Oklahoma linebacker, going to the Green Bay Packers, which I think is a position they need, I think.
It is a position they need, especially with Blake Martinez, their inside linebacker, who's very underrated, makes a lot of tackles, makes a lot of big plays on the defense. He's going to want him a lot of money in free agency. Packers fans might want wide receiver here because I know that they have Devontae Adams, and after that it's question marks. But I've gone with Kenneth Murray just due to the fact that it's a big need, and I think wide receiver you can get in the second round, whereas a linebacker like Kenneth Murray will not be in the second round because look at his stats: 102 total tackles and 4 sacks. He's a real field general that's going to run around.
I've just gone for his solo tackles, and it's 69. So even out of total tackles, more than half of them were him by himself on his own. So, I mean, he is a beast of a player, and I think he will definitely do the Packers a lot of good.
Yeah.
When they if they draft him.
He might not be there. I've seen the Raiders like him as well instead of Patrick Queen. So we could see him go to the Raiders instead. But linebacker is looking like a need for the Packers, and if he is there, I don't think they'll pass up on him. As
we creep closer to draft day, there will be more sort of instances where we'll know where people are going to end up.
It'll get more obvious over time.
Yeah, definitely. And who knows when it comes to these late picks. And speaking of uncertainty in late picks, pick number 31 is meant to be San Francisco, but you have got the Colts taking it from the 49ers. How are they doing this? I
think they trade up. They have the second pick in the second round, just due to previous trades. He said the Redskins don't have it, the Colts do. And I think the 49ers, they don't have a pick. They've obviously got the first round pick, 31. After then, I don't think they picked till round 4 or 5. So they need to move back, pick up some more picks. They need to accumulate more players. So I think the Colts will trade up for them, and they'll pick Yatur Gross Matos.
I love the name.
I've never seen the name before.
We didn't have him in our draft prospects, our combine prospects. What have you seen, or what makes you think him? Because I didn't even think about him going towards the combine preview. Why now is he coming to the fold?
He was a few months ago was maybe like a second round pick, but he has risen up draft boards quite a bit. He had a good combine performance, and defensive end is a need for the Colts. He had 9.5 sacks for Penn State last season, which is pretty good, and he's one of those another good athlete. I think he had a very, very high vertical.
I will go and have a look
for his size. He's a very good athlete for his size. So he could be one of those rushers where he's a technician, but he's also a speed rusher on the outside where he can use his athleticism to make plays on the end. And like I said, the Colts needed a defensive end. They've got Justin Houston, who's getting a bit old. After that, it's question marks. They don't have a second defensive end that can make an impact, in my opinion. Jabal Sheard's a free agent, I believe. I don't think they'll re-sign him. What was his...
he had 20 bench press reps, 34-inch vertical, and 120-inch broad.
Right.
So he is a good athlete, and he is 6'5".
Yeah, he's a big defensive end.
Yeah,
Very big defensive end.
You've got to credit that, and resembles a young Jason Pierre-Paul.
Well, if they get Jason Pierre-Paul at pick number 31, I think they'll be happy with that.
Exactly. That is what they're hoping for.
Yeah.
But as you say, the Colts will trade up for that pick, which again, the Colts will be improving all across the board, and they had a good start to last season, but they just tailed off. So if they can add a few more players to get a bit more consistent.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. They need to add more talent, and they've accumulated a lot of picks. So obviously, I wouldn't trade all them picks away, but if I could take one pick and my second round pick just to jump up and get this guy, I think it would be a good idea.
Oh, I think
and
it's
the
worth
49ers will be open to be doing it because they need more picks.
The 49ers, they won't be desperate, but they don't have a lot of picks until late, and then you're not getting the players you need to challenge going forward. So then that brings us to the team that beat San Francisco, the Super Bowl champions of 2019, the Kansas City Chiefs. They will be choosing, to be fair, what a great season for them. But they are pick number 32. You don't see them trading it away.
I don't see them trading it away, no.
They stick at 32, and they pick the last player in the first round of the 2020 draft, according to Will, is...
AJ Terrell, cornerback, Clemson.
As we said, on the offensive side of the ball, Kansas have been perfectly fine. To be fair, they won a Super Bowl, so do they need anyone?
That's what I mean. It's very hard to find a weakness in a team that's just won the Super Bowl. And the reason I've gone with AJ Terrell is because their number one corner, Kendall Fuller, is out of contract. And he's a guy who's going to be wanting a lot of money. But when you look at the Chiefs' salary, they've got to pay Pat Mahomes. They've just had Chris Jones. He'll want a new contract. They're paying Tyrann Mathieu already. Sammy Watkins is already getting a big chunk of money. So that they've got a lot of big salaries on the team. I don't think they can afford to give another big salary out to someone like Kendall Fuller, who's a very, very good corner, got an interception in the Super Bowl against Jimmy Garoppolo. So AJ Terrell at 32, look, like I said, at the end of the first round, you're just picking best player available, and if he falls to 32, that's a nice pick for the Kansas City Chiefs. He's a pretty big corner. I think he's almost 6'2". So
do you want me to have a quick look?
Yeah, I think he's 6'1", but I don't think he's 6'2", but he's up there. He's very tall.
He is 6'1".
Yeah, and for a corner, that's pretty big. He's very rangy. He had 3 passes defended. He only had 2 interceptions, 34 total tackles. But yeah, like the Chiefs don't have a lot of holes.
I was going to say, he's not going to be your first choice corner, but to be a corner this late, I think it's a fair enough choice.
Yeah, like I said, you're not going to get the top end corners at pick number 32. So you're just going to you have a hole at cornerback. AJ Terrell's your man.
I was going to say they don't need...
They're not desperate for talent, are they, really?
No.
They've got the talent. It's just about reinforcing it and getting younger players at the positions of need.
No, definitely not. But that does bring us to the end of the episode. That was Will Pete's mock draft. Thank you, Will, for creating your mock draft for us. That is 1.0, but there will be 2.0 or 3.0 probably as things change towards the draft. But I'd like to thank you, Will. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
And we are here every single week on the NFL Corner. This was a live show, which then will be uploaded as a video. I don't know moving forward whether that will be a permanent thing or not. I'm not quite sure. But we'll see as time goes on. So as I say, thank you for joining us on the YouTube. Please make sure to comment, subscribe, like, do all that. Make sure to tune into the NFL Corner on a Thursday, the Top Corner podcast on a Wednesday, the Wrestling Corner on a Tuesday, Team of the Week predictions on a Monday.
There's a lot of stuff going on at the Sports Corner.
Yeah, Sports Day on Friday.
YouTube
so
channel.
Any sports you want, please make sure to stick with us throughout the whole week. We appreciate all your support. And thank you for joining us on the live stream, and we will see you next week.